Right now, we're going to hear from Kathie Swift, who's going to talk to us about our digestive system. But she's going to tell us about how it does affect our immune system and the importance of taking care of it. So, Kathie, come on down.
Oh, wow. Wine and I think sugar pot honey? What a way to open up a talk on digestive health. It is a pleasure to be here. They gave me this big bottle of water, and I'll probably use it. And thank you so much for the invitation. And in the next few minutes, we are going to do a very swift synopsis of digestive health. But let's begin with a breath, and let's rub those bellies. Yeah, the Asian elders would rub the belly and say, I know. Our seat of wisdom, our seat of intuition, our seat of intelligence, you know, gut feelings, butterflies in the stomach, and all that. Right now, what's happening in each one of us, and we have that wonderful lunch, and the food is really making this journey through our inside tract. When you look at these, you know, the architecture and the beautiful organs, the stomach is pumping out hydrochloric acid, and the small intestine, if we were to spread it out, it would be about the size of a doubles tennis court. So there's just some amazing things that happen at every moment in our inside tract. I affectionately call it our highway to health, or it can be our pathway to problems in pathology. I won't belinger my own story and how I learned that my immune system, most of my immune system was in my gut. That took me about 2 years in and out of doctor's offices trying to figure out why I was having so many problems. And, you know, I had this whiteboard, and I was going back in time and trying to figure things out. And it was finally, when I did get a diagnosis, I stopped asking what, and I started exploring why. And all roads led to the gastrointestinal tract. So it can be our highway to health or our pathway to problems. We've heard a little bit from Hippocrates this morning, a quote, and as you can see, way back when, he said, all disease begins in the gut. And another thing that we want to think about is that the gut, our digestive tracts are not like Las Vegas. What happens in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. Every system in the body, it's intimately connected to the nourishment, the processes that are happening in our digestive tract at this very, very moment. So we're thinking about our bone health, our heart health, our immune system, really have to think what is going in this amazing system. And this is a beautiful paper. If there was one paper on digestive health that really illustrates the new paradigm that is emerging in medicine, it's this one here by Stephen Bischoff. And it's called Gut Health, a New Objective in Medicine. And certainly we're all familiar with the normalcy of what the gut does, processing, taking our food and transforming it into nutrients to nourish our organs, our tissues, our cells. But the new paradigm goes well beyond this. And the new paradigm is about this interesting, barrier defense, what sometimes we call the Great Wall of the Gut. And I'll talk about that. This our intestinal barrier that is processing and discerning what goes through and what might not go through. We have, of course, very interesting, we have the second brain, our gut brain. And work going on in what's now being referred to as this interplay of what might be the largest organ in our body, the small life that resides within us, the microbiota, weighs about 3 pounds, I think, about the size of our brain. And the interplay of the microbes, the immune system, the second brain, the microbiota brain-gut axis, and this interesting immune system that we have there, that it is our homeland defense system. But I would like to say that our immune system is also social. Right now, it's communicating with the microbes. It's communicating. It's also, think about it, isn't it amazing that most of our immune system is in the gut? And it makes sense. We're taking the outside world within. So it needs to determine friend, foe, or maybe even a frenemy. So this is this beautiful new paradigm of gut health. But interesting, how many of you have seen this book by Peter Menzel, What the World Eats, that depicts kitchen tables from all around the globe? And this is the all-American table. And it's quite hard to find whole foods on that, isn't it? You've got to really, really kind of search for them. One of my favorite researchers in the UK, Stig Benkmark, who's published some wonderful papers, has found that about 75%, it's been estimated, of the food, or Kristen, I don't know where Kristen is, mentioned this morning, these edibles, do we call them food? I love that you started out with that, that about 75% of what we are ingesting as what should be nourishment is of no use to this very important ecosystem, the microbiota within our bodies. These microbes that right now are multitasking to keep us well. So that if a virus or a bacteria came into this room, our stomach acid is going to help knock it out. Our microbes are going to get into the action. It's really, really amazing. But we are not feeding it as what it really needs. And this is why we have these epidemics of digestive disorders. We have a stealth-like rise in esophageal disorders, irritable bowel, inflammatory bowel. I've never seen so many patients every week coming with these diagnoses. We, of course, have another significant epidemic in autoimmune conditions. Not so surprising, since there is this immune system in our bellies. And of course, the obesity epidemic. Globally, the #1 cause for disability, mental illness. And think about that. What we're learning about the bidirectional communication of our belly brain and our central nervous system. Fascinating. And of course, not just in our children, but there has been a significant rise in both food allergies and intolerance in adults. So all connected to our digestive tract. And one of the hypotheses, and there's many, is of course that the gut gets leaky, right? So this intestinal barrier becomes more porous, more permeable, and things can get through that shouldn't get through. And here's some of the potential causes. Sleep deprivation. We're learning so much about the importance of sleep, even as it pertains to detoxification, interestingly. We have many, whether it's antibiotics, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, the purple pills, all these proton pump inhibitors, and many of our children having these conditions, and food isn't even thought about. It's the forgotten factor, and instead prescription medicines being given. And so all of these things, here's our leaky gut guy, and this is what it's like. So we typically have this nice barrier, and then these things called tight junctions. And because of this induced loss of tolerance, things seep through They get into the bloodstream instead of what is coming through to nourish us, and then it can cause all these things. We can become inflamed. We can be our immune system can be hyperreactive. And in some individuals, it can manifest as what? We're all unique. We all have this unique biochemical signature. We have this unique microbial signature. In some of us, it may manifest as brain fog. It may manifest as skin problems. It may manifest as GI symptoms, that irritable bowel. So it can look differently in different individuals. In some individuals, it can cross and the brain can get leaky, i.e. many of these different conditions, both neuropsychiatric and neurological. So how do we think about this too with our children? And although and I'm going to conclude with what we do know now that we can begin to integrate into our lives that will help improve our digestive health and obviously our overall sense of joy and well-being. But let's go back in time. And these things we may not be able to change, how we came into the world. But if any of us are maybe pediatricians or OB people in here or such, but just think about what we can do as change agents in healthcare and medicine. When a baby is born via a C-section, they're not getting the mom's microbial inoculation. And I know some of you are aware of this. So I'm going to just tell you a quick story. We're going to go back to the 1950s, all right? Some of you may remember back then. And there were 4 of us in my family. I'm the youngest of 4. My sister was the oldest. We were all about a year apart. My parents practiced the rhythm method. Anyhow, and when my sister was in kindergarten, back then, they used to say, and it's so good to see the American flag here. My husband was an Air Force pilot for 27 years. So anyhow, back then, children in kindergarten, said the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, the teacher asked my sister's class, what does it mean to be an American? Well, she raised her hand, first one up, and she said, I'm an American, but my brothers and sister are Caesareans. True story. I knew from the time I was this big, my brother and I. So I just share this with you because, and love Mom, but certainly just awareness. Now there's even things like vaginal seeding, and we're exploring some other things that will help a baby get certainly a good start. I actually did my graduate work studying human breast milk. But back then, I wasn't aware of the power of human milk as a component of these oligosaccharides that really are the nourishment for the baby's ecosystem, microbial ecosystem. So anytime we can promote breastfeeding, what we're introducing to our babies, hopefully it's things like sweet potato and avocados and not so much grain. We've got to get our kids out in nature and playing in the dirt. Who was it? FDR, who said, a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. And I'm glad to see that many of our farmers and my friend neurologist wrote a book called The Dirt Cure. So we're finding that this contact with nature and dirt and with animals, nice microbial wash that you see there. And let's change our school lunches together. They should not be feeding grounds for setting our children up for unhealthy digestive tracts. And I really believe, and isn't it, it's disheartening to read articles that predict this is the first group of children that may not live as long as their parents because of what's at the end of the fork and the knife and the spoon. So I had to bring our early life influences in here that can affect us short-term, our children with allergies and asthma and things, but also long-term, setting us up. But let's get down to what is, in just a few minutes that we have remaining, how can we help mend our digestive tracts and influence our sense of well-being. I'm going to focus on this side. Here we are again. We've got our immune system, our brain, and our second brain, and our microbes. You now know this new paradigm, the barrier defense, and we want it to be just right. And what we're going to focus on are the things that wonderful scientists, microbiologists have been showing in paper after paper and paper. What we can do now as the research continues to come in to improve our digestive health. And I put this in a formula that I call MEND. And the M in the MEND is mind your digestion. And we had a beautiful presentation by John Kabat-Zinn. Thank you so much. And I think when it comes to the gut, even if not every meal is mindful, eating consciously, eating with awareness, even if you can have a mindful moment during a meal, that can be helpful. Remember, we have this beautiful nervous system in our belly. So we want to capitalize on how we eat. Think about how we eat, not just what we're eating. I also think that if we can better align our eating and develop a rhythm where it's not chaotic, that we actually may be eating, whether it's 2 or 3 meals a day, and enjoying that. There should also be a period of resting, not just digesting. And it's very fascinating that right now, different fasting programs are being well researched. We have more to learn about that. But another fascinating thing is that we do have what scientists have referred to as a gut clock. And in fact, in May in Chicago, there was the first GI circadian rhythm conference. And I think we're going to be hearing and learning more about that. The secretion of hormones and enzymes that affect us in many, many, many ways. So I think alignment in mindful meals, how important. The E in this MEND formula is eliminate what I call the micro menaces, the things that truly disrupt this healthy ecosystem in our gut. And what are those? Well, we heard some wonderful things from Kristen this morning. It's the inedibles, the refined carbs, the tsunami of sugar that is apparent, the excessive saturated fats, and too much alcohol, which can make the gut leaky. So you can see this with that brain there. And this gal here is saying, I have a gut reaction to artificial sweeteners. You bet. And they have been shown in animal studies to make the gut leaky. So all of these things, bringing back whole, real food. These folks, the Sonnenbergs, microbiologist team out in California, have done some wonderful, wonderful work. And I love this paper, Starving Our Microbial Self. And they call these healthy, life-sustaining carbohydrates microbiota accessible carbohydrates. Now that's a mouthful. You could just call them MACs, but it's not the big MACs, M-A-C, microbiota. And if we follow this piece of cake, you're going to see here that the microbes, thank you, the microbes don't get much out of it. They're not going to get what they need to produce vitamins for you, to enhance nutrient absorption, to prevent precancerous changes, to influence your motility. They're not going to get what they need. However, if we follow a real whole food with fiber, what happens in this journey through the digestive tract, our inside tract, is these foods promote the production of these cool fatty acids. They're called short-chain fatty acids. In our clinic, we measure these things in the stool. And you can see here what that brings is protection. The microbes get what they need. They become diverse. They become, it's referred to as microbial richness. And then there is protection from so many chronic diseases. So pretty cool. So we're minding our digestion. We're eliminating the foods that are menacing to us. Now let's nourish the N in the formula, our gut garden, as you can see there. And there's really 4 simple things that we can do. Bring in the fiber. I love that Kristen this morning showed us examples of food labels and things that will help with that. Get a little culture in your diet. Even a little bit of, as you'll see, sauerkraut or whatever can be helpful. Plants, the polyphenolic and the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So you see this picture here. When I mention fiber to someone, what do you think of? What's the first thing you think of? Grains. And I want you to think, let's all sing this, think veggies first. Think veggies first. Think vegetables and fruits and beans, legumes, nuts and seeds. They're really packed with nutrients and are going to support your healthy microbes. And isn't that beautiful, all the color and the diversity there? The other thing is that some foods have been shown to actually get in there, communicate, and selectively stimulate the growth of our good microbes. That's why they're called prebiotic potential. Don't get lost in this. Eat a diverse amount of plant foods. But I did want to show you things like asparagus, Jerusalem artichoke, yacon, papaya, banana. And here you can see that food traveling through, and it's making its way, and it is doing all these wonderful things, helping your immune system, keeping inflammation at bay. It's having what's called this bifidogenic effect from eating all these wonderful whole foods. Love this paper. Love this paper. One of my areas that I'm very passionate about is this connection of our digestive health to our brain health. My own mom had ALS, so when it comes to both neurodegeneration and mental health, look at this. Fermented foods, our ecosystem within us, the small life, microbiota, and mental health, an ancient practice meets modern nutritional psychiatry. So we want to take this to heart. I love that mindfulness, heartfulness, really take this to heart. Zymology, the study of fermented foods. So if you don't like kombucha or yogurt, well, there's lots of really, really wonderful other foods that you can choose from. That maybe it's a little miso, maybe it's some apple cider vinegar and a salad dressing or such. And then the other thing that's being studied are these plant nutrients, polyphenolic compounds. A lot of wonderful papers on this, how they impact our mood, how they impact the microbes. And you can see here, again, it's being diverse, whether it was some soy foods, whether it was the color, the red, blue, purple compounds in different fruits and vegetables, your tea, your onions, all of these things. So you can build a real whole foods portfolio that is supporting the health of your digestive tract. Don't you love this paper? Look at that. An evolution of well-being and happiness after increases in consumption of fruit and vegetables. And the really nice thing about this paper, it didn't take too long to see the benefit. You can see there, it actually could be immediate. So happiness gains can depend on, again, how are we nourishing our body? How many vegetables and fruits daily? And this is a paper on healthy omega-3 fatty acids that you see here, whether it's in this beautiful salmon or flax seeds or walnuts, or maybe it's an edible weed like purslane or some other wonderful plant that is also of great benefit to our digestive tract and to our brain health. And then the D in the formula is part of what you're experiencing here today. You're experiencing music and dance and all of these things. And these are two of my 4 grandchildren. And take a look at this. They were 5 and 3 at the time. Are they not zenned out watching that duck? I mean, I was probably in the background. I mean, just to look at the beauty of that. They're intimate with the sound. They are one with that duck, watching it as it makes its way. And I think this is truly the essence of being present. So all of these things and laughter. So that really is now, we're going to, I hope, move. But if you want to stand up, stand up. These are your microbes. And what they're doing, come on, dance with me. What they're doing, isn't that cool? Look at this. We need this after we eat. Remember, you've got a few pounds of these guys within us. We want them to be happy. We gotta feed them what they need. Isn't that cool? You're digesting beautifully right now. Amazing. Just love it. They're going to keep going. They're going to keep going. Actually, no, but it's a simple formula that I know, we were talking about this, some of us earlier, that these papers just keep coming in every day. There is a plethora of research papers on the digestive tract, on the gut brain, but I don't want us to wait until we have the more and more papers. I think we can start today. We can start by the next meal that we make, the next meal that we enjoy, and the mindful moments in our life, the connection with nature. I think it can happen and it can begin now. So thank you so much.